Ross Alley, who has been doing opera lectures at St Michael and All Angels Church. Ross, welcome to the show. So can you tell us more about what the opera lectures are all about?
Thank you, Buffy. Yes, of course. The opera lectures were started 15 years ago by my predecessor, a very well-educated and informed man called Barry Jobling. And he had initially started the lectures in Ealing, and two of the people in Chiswick who came to it said, let's start a branch here. So they hired St Michael's, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Excellent. And what's your background in the opera world?
Well, I trained as a pianist, and when I came to London, I worked for the Royal Ballet as a pianist. Oh. And that led to my being asked to lecture at the Royal Opera House when they had study days on a ballet. And after 5 years, the events organizer said, we want you to talk about opera. And I said, but I have no credentials to talk about opera. When I talk about ballet, you can introduce me as a member of the organisation. She said, you're a communicator. Just go and do your work and leave the rest to me.
And what is it that you feel people need to be lectured on about opera? Why do you think people are coming to these lectures?
Well, opera is extraordinary in that it is a unification of all the arts. If you think about it, it's music, it's text, it's staging, it's costumes, it's sets, it's lighting. It's a fantastic union of the arts. And yes, you could say musicals are the same, but opera dates back to 1600. And there's a great legacy of works there. And unless you're trained in classical music, perhaps you don't get a total of appreciation of it at first hearing. And therefore, by repeated hearing, you learn more.
How do you think these lectures open doors to people who maybe had never even thought of going to an opera?
Interesting question. It is interesting that sometimes people bring friends and say, come to this lecture, you might really enjoy it. And people sit there, and sometimes they come up and speak to me afterwards and said, I never thought I was going to like this thing or this particular opera. Maybe it's a 20th century opera. But she said, hearing you explain it makes me listen in a different way. I think it's the same as wandering around an art gallery and by yourself, or going with a guide who makes you stand in front of the painting and look at. I will stop and play a musical example and say, now we're going to listen to it again. And what I want you to listen to is this. And sometimes people say, I've heard that aria, that opera many times, but I'd never noticed that. Now I'm really excited because you've introduced me to an element that I hadn't realised was there.
What type of operas do you have in your lectures? Are there specific ones?
What my predecessor started, and I didn't want to change his successful format, was that he talks about operas that are currently in performance, either at the Royal Opera House, the English National Opera, or now we have the wonderful relays to cinema. First of all, from the Met in New York, now Covent Garden, La Scala, a lot of opera houses do that. So therefore, after I've talked about an opera, people can go and see it.
Wow.
So that's what governs my choice of subject matter. I look at what's being scheduled and build a 12-week lecture series about it.
And what are the operas that will be coming up?
Next week will be Mozart, Così fan tutti, and in the rest of the season we've got Handel's Rinaldo, the first opera he ever wrote specifically for London, and we've got Verdi's Louisa Miller. I should also be talking about Bach St Matthew Passion, which is a departure from opera.
Now, Ross, you actually bring something extra to these lectures as well. It's not just about sitting and listening to you talk about the operas. You actually perform as well.
Yes, I'm very fortunate that there is a piano on the stage with me, and that is very, very useful if I want to demonstrate a particular example. Sometimes I talk about chords, people don't know what I'm talking about. I might talk about tonality, people don't know what I'm talking about. But if I can go to the piano and play something very clearly and slowly, and then perhaps alter it, or if it's an opera that has musical themes, I can pick these out on the piano and then show how the composer uses that musical theme, how they will choose it.
And we were talking earlier as well about the Chiswick community and how special it is around here. Is it nice to see the same faces turning up every week as well?
It's absolutely wonderful. For you Chiswick people, I want to say thank you. This is a wonderful community. I've just moved here in the new year, and one of the reasons I moved here was because of my Thursday lecture. And I found Chiswick to be a wonderful place. I love the fact that there are many older families who have been here a long time, who have a strong sense of community. And because the people who come to my lectures live around here, I walk down the high street and I meet them. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
And when and where can people catch these lectures?
Well, for all you wonderful people in the Chiswick area, we're in St Michael's Church, St Michael's and All Angels, and we use the Michael Room. It's on Thursdays from 2 to 4:15. Why 4:15? Because we have a 15-minute break in the middle for tea, coffee and biscuits.
Excellent. Well, it all sounds very exciting. So thank you so much for stopping to chat to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Buffy. It was a pleasure.